You offer a motorcycle instruction too. You were telling me the other day that there's a big difference between driving a motorcycle. It's a little more dangerous.
Oh yeah, so the reason why it's more dangerous, it's because of us car drivers, right? It's because of us drivers in the car. I definitely recommend that everybody who wants a motorcycle actually goes through a motorcycle safety course, which is typically offered at colleges, community colleges, etc. I think that that's the best way to learn motorcycle. That's how I did. But then when we get on the road, a lot of people don't understand the vulnerability of the motorcycle. And so the motorcyclist often understands it, but we don't as the driver. So a couple of things with motorcycles that we definitely want to look out for is more following distance than we think. We want to follow farther behind than what we think. And here's why. I was literally driving the other day, and it's a multi-lane road, so it's 2 lanes going in the same direction. This motorcycle's in the right lane. A car pulls right out in front of him, doesn't see him. They were probably looking at all the cars. The motorcycle was probably too close to the car in front of him, so he couldn't be seen. So the motorcyclist really needs to make sure that traffic can see him. But we, of course, as drivers of a normal car, need to be looking again. The car pulls out. He has to immediately take an evasive maneuver to his left, essentially cutting off a car over there. He was going to get hit. Now this car gets upset, thinking he didn't pay attention. So now that car thinks the motorcycle cut him off. And it actually really escalated. I kind of watched it in front of me. My point is, we need to remember that motorcyclists are smaller, they're harder to see, and we need to give them more following distance. We actually, when we're following them and there's a rough road, they have to maneuver a lot. They can't just go into a pothole or they'll dump the bike. So they have to go slower. That's really important.
Well, I was saying to you the other day when we were talking that I was on 787 and I pulled into another lane and I looked before pulling in, and all of a sudden there's this beeping of a motorcycle behind me, and I have no idea where the heck the guy came from. I think he may have been going faster than he was supposed to be.
Well, so motorcyclists typically have a reputation. Now, not all motorcyclists, but we do have a reputation, motorcyclists, of going fast. If anyone is friends with a motorcyclist and they're true friends, they have stories for you. We boys like to get motorcycles for a reason. But then the other thing too is, and this is actually becoming a big problem, motorcyclists are out on the weekend a lot, and so we have to be more cautious around the weekend, but checking the blind spot, always make sure we look again. And that's when technology really helps us, like blind spot detection and those types of things that really help us be more aware of what's around us. Because you're right, we don't know if they were coming up 100 miles an hour, but what matters is they're right there, and we need to know that because they're tough.
One thing, since our conversation, I've been actually paying more attention to my driving, so you gave me a little course on the phone the other day. But I've noticed looking for motorcycles, because you have vans which are so high now, and the motorcycle is so low, it makes it difficult to see them, especially pulling out on corners and stuff.
Oh, absolutely. So again, I go back to motorcycles are small, and motorcycle deaths happen far too often, in my opinion. And really what we need to remember is it's no different than when we're approaching an intersection to make a left turn, and the only thing we're looking for are the cars across from us instead of pedestrians in the walkway. It's very easy to hit something you're not looking for. And so the reality is we simply don't look for motorcycles, because just like looking for small children when we're backing up out of a driveway, if I don't have small kids, I'm not looking for small kids in my driveway. But a parent with 5 kids is making sure 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, I can back up. It's what we're looking for. And so we do have to remember, again, particularly on nice days, on the weekends, but every time, there are other types of vehicles on the road other than us, and we really need to make sure we're looking for them and always looking again.
Before teaching people how to, you also, besides teaching people how to drive a car or a motorcycle, you also teach people how to drive commercial vehicles. And tell us about getting a commercial license. You said there's a Class A, B, and C. Oh
yeah. So, and then there's also the E, which is like the taxi and the passenger carrier, limousines, that type of thing. I have had a CDL. My dad actually taught all of that stuff. I personally don't teach it because, again, we're boutique. We like what we do as far as teaching people in the car. We're so busy as it is. We send people to those who are just do that all day long. And tractor trailers are, of course, your Class A, your really big tractor trailers. I love putting new drivers next to tractor trailers on the highway. That's one of my favorite things to do. Teaching them about the no zone, teaching them about not being in their blind spot, realizing that we have to be a lot farther behind them when we're driving on the highway. It's so easy to just want to tailgate them and they cannot see us. But yeah, your Class A, your really big ones. Your Class Bs are a little bit smaller in size and weight, your standard bus, school bus, things like that. And then your Class C, your smaller buses, your box truck, anything under 36,000 pounds.
Now, a tractor trailer, you and I were talking about this the other day. Sometimes I find it very intimidating on roads. You'll see them pulling 3 or 4,
Oh, yeah, up to 3 tandem. Yeah, so they'll be pulling 3, and those are the smaller ones. And then the really big trailers, they're allowed to 2 in New York State. You go out west, anything in the East Coast is all 2 or less of the really big full size.
I think Maryland has 3. I've seen them.
So there are a few states as you get in less populated situations, and definitely out west 3, where they'll be hauling literally almost 200 feet long. I mean, you're talking over 50 feet each trailer, plus the cab in front, almost 200 feet long driving down the highway. They're, of course, not allowed in the cities, so that's why you get those tandem dropped off. So you'll see a lot of those double, triple trailers, maybe on the highway. I still remember when I saw my first triple, really big one. I was out west, and of course, being a kind of a driving junkie as a little kid, I was like, man, I can't wait to see my first triple, because you just never saw them out here. But the rules are a little bit different. We, of course, need to make sure, remember, they take longer to speed up, and they take longer to stop. So bigger vehicles can't just stop on a dime. And so when we're pulling out in front of them, or when we're braking on the highway, we need to remember about what's behind us, because they're really heavy.
Now, one thing we were talking about is you never see those kind of situations in municipalities, and that's because of the thruway exchange stations, and I never knew what they existed for. Tell our viewers about the exchange stations.
So first of all, they're a great place to take a nap, right? If you miss a rest area, you want to get off, you're tired, you're driving while drowsy, take a nap in the exchange station. But the big thing we have to be careful about the exchange stations is those easy passes. People wonder why, like in certain places on the thruway, the easy pass is only 5 miles an hour, and now they've moved up to 20, but those easy pass electronic tolls wherever you are in the country. Well, the reason why they have to remain slow is because you have tractor trailers pulling out from 0 miles an hour with 2 full-size trailers, well over 100 feet long, coming out across the toll lanes. And so just imagine if someone's trying to rocket through there at 50 miles an hour. And so those exchange stations are there because they're allowed to drive multi-trailers on the highway, but they're not allowed to do them on a typical municipality.
Now, you were telling me there's difficulties now with people living longer in the United States of America. There comes a point where maybe a man or woman should give up their driver's license because they really can't do it anymore.
And that, don't we do that with everything? For some reason, when it comes to driving, we don't want to retire, but yet eventually we stop playing certain sports. Eventually we stop doing certain activities because the body, the mind wants to, but the body just can't keep up with it. Unfortunately, often in driving, it's the body can do it, but the mind can't necessarily. My dad, unfortunately, was diagnosed. We found out he had dementia at about age of 57. Now, can you imagine this class everything driver? I mean, my dad was literally world-renowned national trainer. This guy drove for a living, and at 57, we find out he has dementia. He couldn't drive anymore. And that conversation, he wasn't even 60 yet. So I'm not saying there's an age, but what I am saying is, as a family, we stepped in and did something about it. Nobody knows the person who's driving like those closest to them. And just like we don't want them to hurt themselves doing any other activity, we certainly shouldn't want them to be hurt while they're driving.
Well, you had mentioned earlier in the program that you taught someone in their 80s.
87, good old Stanley. Yes.
How to drive.
And he actually had his license taken away, and so he had to start the process all over again. So he had to go back and get his permit and run through everything again. But he was a very good driver, yes. But in New York State, you can actually report people into the state to get retested and that sort of thing. So if families are even not wanting to create too many waves with family members that they know shouldn't be driving, they can report them anonymously and have them retested.
Well, I saw that in a situation where someone ended up not being able to drive anymore, and they were so annoyed because they felt they had all this driving experience. Why should they be mandated to?
Yeah.
It was a very sad thing to see.
And it is. And like my grandmother, who she just doesn't want to drive anymore, the tricky thing is that we just need to make the time, right? Make the time to visit them so they're not shut-ins. Make the time. There are a lot of programs for elderly to get out shopping, to get out to lunch. They can be picked up from their house. And it's great because they can socialize. But you're absolutely right. With people living longer, just because we're living doesn't mean we can drive.
Now, you were excited about the new technology in cars. I want to talk about some of the new technology which excites you.
Yeah, so excited. I mean, everything from auto chargers for phones to an inside cabin tech, but I'm really a big proponent of things that affect us outside the cabin. So a lot of times we'll get into a brand new car and everything will be electronic and digital, and we get really intimidated by it. This huge screen in the middle, what do I do with that? How do I touch all of that stuff? All those types of things. And all of that stuff is wonderful, but really what I care about is the technology that helps us drive better, okay? Now, let's think back to the Model T, right? You could have any color so long as it's black, all right? They didn't have turn signals, they didn't have cruise control, right? Yeah, I mean, shoot, it was leaded fuel, you know what I mean? All those types of things. And so if we think back over the course of 100 years, we embrace technology. But when it comes to the last 10, I like my last car, and I'm used to my last car. So I get a little intimidated about the new technologies. There are some great ones. AARP recommends these for elderly, but I recommend them for everybody. I love them. So I remember the first time I got into a rental car. I'm driving at night, and all of a sudden the lights go up, high beams. I'm like, what in the world? I didn't touch anything. So I turn them off. They turn back on again. This is ridiculous. You've got to be kidding me. Auto high beams? Come on. Now, how lazy can we get as a driver? Mr. Judgmental Steve, right? 5 minutes later, wow, this is pretty cool. Every time a car comes, they just go to low. Every time they pass, high beams go back on. This is really nice. Auto high beams are wonderful. Other light technology includes smart headlights, headlights that actually move around a curve as the steering wheel moves to be able to see farther ahead. That gives us ability to see pedestrians. That gives us the ability to see wildlife, things that we normally wouldn't see because the headlights are actually turning. Higher quality of lights. There are a lot of times now where we'll be driving toward a car after not having seen a car for a while at night, and we think their high beams are on just because their headlights are brighter, which is a really good thing. BMW with headlights is actually working on this laser technology where as you're driving down the road, cars can be coming toward you, and the light beam, the laser beam will actually split so that you don't have to turn off the high beams, but as the cars come toward you, the beam stays away from the eyes of the driver. Now, how cool is that? Because we know that driving at night, the hardest thing is you can't see. And so the better we can see, the better it is, period. I love blind spot information systems. Ford calls it BLISS, but a lot of people have them where there's some type of blind spot warning system, from a little light to a beeping to the new Hondas actually have a camera. A friend of mine has a CR-V, brand new. I was blown away. She turns on her turn signal, and she can see in the middle panel, in the middle console, that LCD panel, everything to the right side of the car because there's a camera mounted underneath the side mirror. And these are not luxury vehicles, right? That's what's so great about this technology is as we're shopping for cars, they're becoming more available on newer vehicles. I am a big proponent of backing systems. So anything that has a camera while you're looking back is so much better. Kids are run over every year. They're tough to see behind the car. The older I get, I know, or if I'm sore from a workout, the last thing I want to do is turn all the way around, right? So these things help us. And so the biggest thing with all these new technologies, which are so fascinating, I could go on for days about this, but as they're designed to help us, right? They're not designed to replace the driver, but they are designed to help the driver. And so as we're shopping for cars, think about them, embrace them, and try them out. Because like those high beams that I was so judgmental about for the first 5 minutes, boy, now when I rent a car and it doesn't have the auto high beams because my car does, I'm completely spoiled.
Well, unfortunately, class is going to have to end with our driving instructor. Thank you so much. We have learned so much. We could do another show on this subject. Our guest has been Steve Darling of the Easy Method Driving School in Schenectady. I'm Joe Condon. Drive safely.
Yes, thank you.